Do it.
Good morning, everyone. We have a special week cap edition with Clay D and my man, Mr. Greer. And we're going to be recapping really the past week and what we weren't able to recap on Saturday, as well as the Super Bowl weekend, this past weekend now. So we have a lot to say, and quite frankly, there wasn't enough time to cover everything. But we just gonna get right on to it. We know what we didn't even cover the Grammys the past week, and now everything it feels like dog years ago. So
I know that's right.
we gotta go to the Grammys first before that becomes completely old news. So the Grammys, it was basically was a glorified telethon. You had basically the whole entire ceremony dedicated to raising money for the wildfires in the Los Angeles area, which I felt was very good. I thought Trevor Noah did a good job as host, especially calling out in a kind of slick way, calling out the corporate sponsors there. Like, hey, instead of asking us poor folks, quote unquote, to donate, why don't y'all donate? And don't know if it was scripted or not, but he was able to get some big donations, like literally on air. So
That's right.
kudos to him for that. I've always kind of felt that way. It's kind of like how I feel when you go to Harris Teeter, Kroger, or you know, you're asking people to round up for $1 when eggs are $9. I mean, like, y'all corporate execs. I mean, I don't mind giving, but what are y'all doing or giving? I mean,
Right.
I'll check out your social responsibility report because we shouldn't have to be coming out unless we want to, but you're kind of guilting us to when I mean that's just how I feel in general
Yeah. I
when
agree.
when it comes to these telethons or anytime when we have these tragedies or natural disasters and you have rich celebrities or corporate entities basically say, please donate. And I'm always have kind of been since I was a kid. Well, what did you donate? I'm just curious if you even donated at all, which kind of
Right.
find out in many cases they don't donate like they come off. This is why this is why it's good to live in the digital age we live in now because we can kind of find out in real time and call people out. Yeah.
Exactly. No, I agree with you. I thought the Grammys were great. I thought personally that they were a little too long. I mean, it did seem like it was dragging out. I appreciated the telethon aspect and raising money for the wildfires. I love to see black women win, so that was cool to see Doechii get a win. Beyonce, of course. And I just thought that overall, Trevor Noah did a good job. I know some of his jokes didn't land necessarily in that audience, but I've
Yeah.
always admired him. So. Maybe not his best night joke wise, but I do like the way that he orchestrated everything, or more so moderated, and the way that he raised money for those wildfires, which I believe are now almost fully contained, which is good because those
Mhm.
wildfires just wreaked such destruction on the California community, specifically Los Angeles. And so it was cool to see the LA fire chief, who could hardly contain herself, deliver one of those awards to Beyonce. And so
Mhm.
I'm sure we'll get into some of the individual awards, and you can't talk about the Grammys and the music industry without talking about Beyonce. But I thought it was an interesting night.
Yeah.
One moment that stood out to me, and I know we have other topics to get to, but I do want to point out one moment that stood out to me was the way that Chapel Roan called out the industry for not really providing some of the basic needs. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. I did.
And I thought that was
I kind of like
interesting.
that.
Yeah, particularly healthcare, but she was not playing. She had her speech written out, and I think the audience was agreeing with her and supporting her because it's true. The way that these folks who are young or who just get signed, they don't have all of the bells and whistles and protections that we think they do. So, yes, while there is some privilege in that industry, there's a lot of money in that industry. It just goes to show, as you were saying earlier, sometimes those corporate folks or those labels do all they can to hold on to money, and make the more marginalized sacrifice.
Yeah, my whole thing has always kind of been like this. And this is why, again, it's good that we live in the digital age of spaces. You have you always Hollywood has always been glamorized as rich and famous. And when I was coming up, since this is Gen Y meets Gen Z, I did grow up in it kind of with that mentality and sense, not really knowing the struggles of independent artists or those who didn't really quite weren't as big. I just assumed that everybody in the Hollywood spaces were rich and famous. That's just kind of what the notion was. Not until really kind of more so recently, or once you kind of like, and I have in many cases worked in the industries for a little bit or have had proximity to it. The reality is this: it's made up of more struggling people than not. This is why, like we said on previous shows, that we need to diversify. We need to basically have um, support for the creator economy. Man, the creator economy has always existed. It's just now in the form of social media. The creator economy
Right.
existed 20, 30 years ago as well.
Right.
Just different platforms. And it
Totally.
needs to be an organization, or at least, dare I even say, kind of a government program that supports these individuals who enter these fields and such. And we already know that's going to be just a
Right.
controversial topic. I mean, kind of use an old 2010s terminology, socialist. But the reality is this: it's an economy, it's an industry that benefits our economy. The entertainment industry benefits hospitality immensely. Our next topic, the Super Bowl, prime example of that. Um,
Right.
it supports the food and beverage industry. It like especially like us being permanent residents of North Carolina. That does a lot whenever you film on location. That supports the local economies, like with restaurants and tourism dollars. So there's a lot of industries that could benefit from all artists doing well. So it's not just one. Even the tech industry can benefit off of the entertainment industry, which we all know go hand in hand. So there are many
Right.
layers and facets that could benefit from basically artists of all kind and having that diversity of thought and having just the access and arts and entertainment. There's so many layers. There's the art aspect of it. There's the film, theater, music, a la the Grammys and such, and even sports and entertainment. So many facets that surround that. So I'm all for having a program. If y'all want to have a public part or private ship where SAG-AFTRA gives folks a I can't even think of the word, basic income, I'm all for it. If y'all want to have that in a
Right.
form of organization just so it doesn't look like the government's doing it, I'm all for it. But there needs to be something in place. And the writer's strike and the actor strike from a couple of years ago further highlighted that even more,
That's
especially
true.
AI. So that's my opinion on everything there.
That's true. Before we get into the Super Bowl, let me ask you this because it surprised me a little bit. But Kendrick Lamar won at least twice at the Grammys, and it was cool to see him up there. And it seemed like Taylor Swift was supporting him, which kind of became a thing on social media. What did you make of that? Of Kendrick Lamar winning at the Grammys, the way that black men and black women in particular were elevated, and I guess going back to Chapel Roan, the way that they allowed her to speak about this more progressive or radical idea. What did you make of the whole socio-political meaning of the Grammys?
I liked it. I personally liked it. I mean, the Grammys and Oscars have been guilty of kind of been putting on the liberal Hollywood front for so long. I mean, people have to realize Hollywood was as probably conservative and California was as conservative all gets. I mean, heck, you didn't get Ronald Reagan for a reason. I mean, I mean, there's a reason you had a Ronald Reagan presidency to begin with.
Right,
So
right.
it's kind of not forget that it wasn't until the 90s that Hollywood or California became liberal. And this is a true fact. You can Google this in real time. So it's good. I liked it. I liked it a whole lot. Again, like I always say in all of our previous episodes, all of our previous talks offline, we talked about it. We got to convert the protests or the call outs into actionable results.
Right.
I'm going to always say that probably every week that we do this, or every time we talk. What's going to be the next step beyond that? Because look, it don't matter who's in office. You still gotta speak up. So that's why what people always gotta say, well, let's wait 4 years. No, still talk now. And
Right.
this is why oftentimes people who vote like us get mad at me. You may not even be around 4 years. God forbid we are. But until then, you gotta live right now. You gotta pay bills
Right.
right now. You gotta educate yourself right now. Great, you're not gonna wait till a Democrat gets back in office to continue your law studies. No. So everybody always say, I'm going to wait until we get a better Congress. No, you start now.
Right.
You always start now.
Right.
You always make the ask now. You gotta make the
Well,
ask.
and I think
Mhm.
to that point, if I could, I think that's where creativity and innovation plays a role, right? Because it is going to look different, right? The action that has to be undertaken will look different now than it might in 4 years or when you have all the houses or both houses of Congress or all the branches of government. But there's still action that can be taken now. And so when people say, well, I don't know what to do or we don't have any power, I don't believe that because there's always power in the collective. And so what we need to do we generally might look different or differently now than it will in 4 years, but you can't, to your point, just wait until everything is going your way to start acting. So speaking, that is an action, but also when you're in the political arena, legislation and getting these policy proposals going and enacted is key. So people can have the written or the legal protections that they need. And we see now, not to go off on a tangent, but we see now how that's playing out in the courts and the elevated role and necessity, importance of judges to
Yeah,
check this current administration because they do have all three branches of government. And I say all three because the Supreme Court is just totally chock full of folks who are going to defend Trump until the end and people who are practically corrupt in the form of Clarence Thomas, et cetera. So it's important that you speak up, that you act out, and that you try to get some of this progressive policy enacted so that people have legal and written protections that they can point to.
absolutely. And going back to the Grammys as a whole, so we don't get too far off. Um, I liked Dolce, and then honestly, for full disclosure, I didn't even hear about Dolce until the Grammy night. I just know that, but that's just the truth. I'm more into old school music than new school. I tell everybody that. So even with Kendrick, like I can't. I've never completely got with him, especially not now. Well, let's be real about that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I checked her out. I looked on some of her videos on YouTube. I was pretty impressed with the young lady. You know,
Yeah, she's great. I don't know much about her, but I have heard some of her music this year, and she's very creative. Her speech was great. She brought her mom up there and just talked about um, God and just the way that life is all about community, pushing you to be better, which is one of the themes of this show. So let's talk about the Super Bowl, though. Can we shift?
absolutely, we could shift. But yeah, also too big shout out to Beyonce for finally winning Album of the Year.
Yes, totally.
Jay-Z made a fuss about it, rightfully so. And I didn't even think they were gonna ever come back to the Grammys in person, but they sure enough did, and well, it paid off. So speaking of does pay off, but and Kendrick, yeah, that was interesting. And this leads perfectly to the next subject matter as well. Super Bowl week was great. I was down in New Orleans for about a good week down there and such. Obviously, we did our last show. Well, I did my last show basically on location and such. That was a fun experience being media there and going to a lot of exclusive spaces and such. And my that was more of the experience more than just a general fan experience. I mean, I personally try not to do things in the fan aspect of it because personally, me, as I've gotten older, more wiser, I don't like to come off as a fan or be fans of individuals necessarily, because not to get biblical, but I try not to go into idolatry. That's why I don't typically wear jerseys no more. Well, they're not even really in fashion anymore anyway, like they were. But so
Right.
I'm just very just mindful of being fans. Like even with politics, like I don't become fans of politicians anymore. Like I'm basically am done with that. Like, Obama really was kind of the last one, and
Hmm.
kind of frankly, I felt let down. If we're just gonna be frank about that. So, but he is a man. That's how I look at any of these public figures, politicians, celebrities, athletes, ex-athletes. They're human, just like you and I, even Beyonce. So, that's why I'll never say I'm a part of a beehive or any hive or tribe. I don't like to necessarily use terms like Swifties or the only one I'm a fan of is Jesus. Like that's really just try to how I go about my life these days. So that's really the only person I'm a fan of in that
I
sense. But
love it.
absolutely. But I do like to use the term supporter and admirer. So every time someone uses fan, I say I'm a supporter and admirer. Like even when I was approaching ex-athletes or even current athletes, I always was very mindful because sometimes they think you're a fan, even when they see a media badge on you. So, oh, like Charles Woodson, I'm a big admirer supporter of yours, always has been. I had to very be conscious because they're used to dealing with fans. See, I like to say I'm an admirer and a supporter or a follower. Big difference. So, but I enjoyed every aspect of it. New Orleans was very hot. It was very hot and humid. I know we're supposed to be getting snow like here in North Carolina now, supposedly.
Really? Yeah, it was warm. Again, not to go too far off, but well, first of all, I'm glad you had a good experience down there in New Orleans. I heard it was just great. I know there were a lot of Philly fans down there, but I heard the weather was decent and the atmosphere was fun, so that's great. And yeah, we're having a little bit of a so we had a warm front come through here in Atlanta last week, which was kind of nice. I was able to get out and about and do some outdoor activities I hadn't done in a while, but now it's starting to get cold again. So are you saying there's snow coming to North Carolina soon?
They say it was still coming today.
Wow. Is it
Or
cold there? How
at
cold
least
is it?
it was pretty cold yesterday. I was surprised. Like
Okay, that's
coming in,
interesting.
coming in from New Orleans, I got out of the car, went into the house, so I didn't really get a chance to absorb the feel, and the heat stays on in the house, so I didn't really feel anything until the next morning. I'm like, oh wow, until
Huh.
yesterday. So I'm like, this is it's cold. But I read that DC and New York are supposed to be getting snow, and usually if it snows up in DC, there's a good chance we might get
Right.
in here. You know how that goes. So
Yeah, North Carolina does kind of follow DC's weather patterns. All right, let's get into it.
yes,
What were your thoughts on, let's go to the game first.
yeah, we'll talk
What were
about
your
the
thoughts
game.
on the Super Bowl, the game? Jalen Hurts, MVP, the Eagles dominated pretty much the Chiefs and won the Super Bowl. What were your takeaways from the game aspect?
I was surprised. I had the Chiefs winning 45-35. I said it on our last show. I know I'm kind of getting clowned for that, but and you have a team that's on the precipice of greatness. There was a chance for a historic repeat by the Chiefs. Those opportunities ain't gonna come up too much, which is be real, especially with parity always increasing in the league. And now there's talks of there being 18 games. I mean, you're not gonna free P opportunities just don't come by like they used to. When I was growing up, they were more of a commonality. The last free P in North American sports were the Lakers, Shaq and Kobe Lakers, 2000, 2001, 2002. Prior to that was Derek Jeter's Yankees, 98, 99, 2000, and Michael Jordan's Bulls dynasties. So that's I basically grew up on seeing three-peats, but it never happened in the NFL. They came close to happening with the Cowboys in the Niners in the 90s, and even the Patriots more so, but like never this close. Like a team had even made it to the Super Bowl after winning two straight Super Bowls in a row, even in the past instances that I referenced. So I just felt that a legendary quarterback, at least one that many were considered to be the GOAT or the next GOAT, that he would show up in the big game. And quite frankly, Patrick fell off. He looked shook. Like I've never seen. The reason why many people had him winning because even when they do get down, they usually figure it out. They got the kill shot. The Eagles did the kill shot on them real quickly. They look shook. They look scared. It's almost like they gave up when things didn't go their way immediately. And that was really kind of quite surprising that there wasn't even, at least in my own eye test, there wasn't an effort. But I mean, hats off to the Eagles. They did their thing. That's just the reality of that. I think as far as the Chiefs go, I think they'll be back. I don't think they'll be back to what we're used to. I think they'll still be in contention. Like they'll make the playoffs still, but they're gonna have to do a complete reload. I think Travis Kelsey's gonna be retiring. I think Andy Reid might retire pretty soon. They're
I
gonna have
agree.
to completely reload. And as much as my favorite athlete, Tom Brady, who I couldn't get a pick with down in Super Bowl week, thanks to his security team.
They don't be playing, I'm telling you.
That's the last. Hey, that's the last athlete I've been a fan of too. So we like using that term fan. So even I
He's a
had
goat. He's a goat.
yeah, he's the GOAT. But reality is that he went 10 years without winning a Super Bowl. He had basically two dynasties. Three. You can even make the argument three. because even the 10-year span, he didn't win a Super Bowl. He was still making it to the Super Bowl or to the AFC Championship game or winning 10 games a season with the Patriots. And let's not
Right.
forget, he went to Tampa Bay year one and won a Super Bowl and almost and was a contender the following year, basically up until he retired. So will Patrick play 20 plus years? I don't think so. I don't think too many, even though the rules are more in favor of the quarterbacks or offense. I don't think athletes are going to play that long these days, even in the NBA. I think LeBron's going to kind of be, we could probably have an All-Star edition, NBA All-Star edition later on this week, but I, I don't think you're going to get athletes playing that long because I think there's more other outside interests that athletes want to get into now, whether it's social justice or whether it's just other business ventures and health and safety. Even though the game is a little safer, it's still not completely safe.
Right.
So I just don't think that athletes want to be as one-dimensional as they once were. So I think even we're kind of seeing this in the NBA. The players want to more so collect, dare I say, checks than trophies. Whereas back in the day, people like Jordan and Magic, they're all about winning rings.
I
And
think you're exactly right.
so
Yeah.
I don't think basically I'm just going to sum it up by saying this. I don't have Patrick as the potential go anymore. I had Brady one, Joe Montana two, Mahomes three. Had he won, I would have put Mahomes two, Montana three, Brady one. He he's number three, but I don't think he ain't gonna catch Brady now. Like that,
Yeah.
so
No.
like that. I don't think you can come back because it's not just the fact that he lost. You lost at a chance to make it a three-peat and you got beat down. Brady ain't never got beat down in the Super Bowl. He may have lost in the fluky helmet catch or all his losses in the Super Bowl were close games.
Right. Not
They
to
were
mention
never,
the major Super Bowl comebacks that he's had, like against the Falcons, I believe it was
yeah,
a few years back. I agree with you, just to keep it brief, because I do agree with you on most, if not all, of those points. The Eagles looked good. I mean, their defense was dominant. Saquon Barkley looked great. Jalen Hurts, of course, I knew he was going to get the MVP once the Eagles won. But yeah, I think Nick Sirianni and just the Eagles organization, they just kind of slow and steady wins the race, right? They learned from their mistakes throughout the season. They had some ups and some downs, but we all knew that they were going to make it to the playoffs, and a lot of people predicted that they would be one of the teams in the Super Bowl. And so I was just one of something that was shocking to me was the way that they dominated. I mean, I know the Chiefs scored there, I think twice late to make it appear a little bit closer, but the Eagles had that game totally in their control throughout all four quarters. And so I appreciated that, and I think it was cool to um, just have two black quarterbacks playing, and one of them obviously was going to come out on top. I really do love and respect all that Jalen Hurts stands for, be it his kind of agent and marketing team being a lot of women, women of color, and just the way that he carries himself. I know a lot of people don't necessarily vibe with him. And I've heard some people
yeah.
recently say like he has an attitude and such, but I don't think he has any more of an attitude than anyone else who's playing at the highest levels.
I would
So
say that, not to interject there, if now that he's a Super Bowl champ, I mean, this is completely on him, but I don't know if any of his representation probably just needs to say he needs more of a personality. Now, if that's just him, that's just him, but maybe he needs to do some ads or and such, but he needs a personality flair. I mean, say what you want about Mahomes, at least he has a personality. I mean,
right. Yeah.
you're
No,
and
you're right.
even the greats, like Brady didn't necessarily have a personality at first, but he grew into it. So it takes time to grow into it. Montana was pretty dull at first, but you grow into it. He's gonna have to develop a marketable, even if it's by force. He has to develop that at some point because you don't want. I think it'll help him out with endorsement deals and whatnot, and just getting more casual Eagles fans. And I think, again, not to inject politics into this, I think a lot of the Eagles support was not just the fact that the Chiefs were this dominant team the past several years, but the political and social aspect did help bring a lot of Eagles fans for this one game. Will that stay? No. That's why I think he's going to have
Right.
to develop more for personality because can't ride on, well, the Eagles, to go up against a team. that Trump supports, or the Eagles are probably one of the more liberal, quote unquote, progressive franchises, but at some point he's going to need a personality. I'm just
Yeah.
saying.
No, I think that's a great point. That kind of leads me to my next point. So I know President Trump was at the game. He left early. I believe Dr. Jill Biden was at the game, but I haven't been able to confirm that. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't see many pictures. I guess we should have figured that Trump was going to dominate the coverage. What everybody's talking about this week is the halftime show and the symbolism and the significance of that performance. I want to get your thoughts on that, but let me just set it up by saying I think what you just mentioned was important. I do agree that a lot of folks who may not be super plugged in or connected to football were riding with the Eagles in this game just because of that socio-political significance of Jalen Hurts, right? What he stands for, the way that he's talked about black quarterbacks in the league. Not that Patrick Mahomes hasn't supported black quarterbacks, but the way that Philadelphia just has that history, right? That political history. Like you said, they're a more left-leaning organization than the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know much about their fans, but maybe the fans are even more accepting and open-minded than some of the Chiefs fans. Uh, of course, people have been speculating, or maybe it's been proven, but I don't want to speak outside of my league as to Patrick Mahomes' wife or some of his family members and their support for conservatism and for Donald Trump. You don't see that same thing with Jalen Hurts, for example. And so that halftime show, getting back to my point, about sustainability, a lot of people are saying, well, it was super political and everybody needs to really go and understand and interpret all of the symbolism. And I did catch some of that symbolism upon first watch. My question is, and you kind of already answered this. A, is that going to last? And B, was this the moment for that? I like Kendrick Lamar. I've always liked Kendrick Lamar, and I'm always down for protest. You know that. But to
Absolutely.
say that this was the time for it and it's going to make some major difference, a lot of white folks who I've been seeing, especially older white folks, were like, that was a terrible halftime show. I didn't understand any of the symbolism. I'm not a big fan of rap. So, whose minds did that halftime show change is my question. And
All
people
right.
are saying it was so needed in this moment. It was so political. It's just going to lead to some what? Shift, change? I just don't buy it. So, I think two things can be true. And you and I talked offline about this. There was a Facebook post that said this. Two things can be true. You could have expected more from that performance. You could have wanted something a little different. You could have understood the symbolism. Like all of these things can be true. You get it, but you wanted more, or you get it, but you don't think this is going to create some major shift in American politics or in the way that people take in American sports. So that's kind of where I am over in the both and section. I love Kendrick Lamar. I like his songs, but that first song, I didn't know what it was. And then the symbolism with Samuel L. Jackson as Uncle Sam, Serena Williams was out there. I think that went over a lot of people's heads. And if an artist has to explain every minute detail of their performance
Thank
to people, I'm not sure that that really hit the mark. But go ahead.
you. Let me get started here. That halftime show was lousy. I don't care. You can unfollow me. You can block me. I don't care. I want to say this, and I'm the biggest. I am the biggest. That's what. Sorry, that happens when you have Amazon deliveries. But I'm the biggest proponent of basically using your platform. I definitely am that person. So everyone wants to say I'm otherwise. Please. The thing is this. I don't mean, and if I come off sounding like an old fart, so be it in this case. With the Super Bowl halftime show, at least the way this game was going, I wanted something very entertaining. I'm just saying that did not hit the mark for me. That was good for a niche audience. Like I always say, that was good for Essence Fest. Heck, that would have been good for the Grammys. That ain't good for the Super Bowl. I'm just saying that it did not make sense to me, and I get what he was trying to do if you want to look at it that way, but the thing is this, it just didn't vibe. And like you just said, if you have to explain it, then that in itself is a problem. Because heck, if you and I agree or can't get it, then who's going to get it?
Right,
I mean,
right,
that's just being honest. And if
right.
like the opportunity was used just to as a rap beef against Drake, which I didn't care for. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I respect Kendrick. He does good social rap, but I'm not a fan. Again, you know me I already just said I ain't a fan of too many people, especially these days. The only one I'm going to ever relinquish the word fan is to Michael Jackson, Prince. Now, anybody else? Yeah, y'all just right here. That
Well,
if,
let me ask you
yeah,
this.
go
Let me
ahead, go
kind of
ahead. I got a lot more to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I know you do. Let me hone in on this point though, because it's something I've been struggling with this week. I'm all for protest. I'm all for radicalism. But this idea that people have that black folks, and this is black folks saying this,
Yeah,
that black folks just want to be entertained all the time, right? To your point, and that this was something different and new, and what's wrong with that? My point is in the NFL, right?
yeah,
The National Football League, with the fan base that they have, with the Rooney Rule, with the
yeah,
way that they've approached race, and let's talk about Colin Kaepernick.
yes,
Why do people think that the Super Bowl halftime show should no longer be entertaining? I mean, one of the most radical things you can do is have black joy, right? And
right.
black happiness. And so to say, oh no, this was the time to make the halftime show political, was it? Because the main audience, I know people watch the game all around the world, but the main NFL audience, even though the league is predominantly black, are white folks.
Yeah,
And they're not going to become more political. Kendrick Lamar did not change white folks' minds. The people that voted for Trump are not going to vote for the Democrat next time around just because
thank
of
you.
this performance. So to your point, why not make it entertaining? I mean, what do you think about that? That this
Oh,
wasn't the time to be entertained.
1000%. I mean, 1000%. Because here's my thing. Guess what? Just like I said earlier, he's still in office. He ain't gonna be. People said this was this Eagles victory and that Kendrick performance was a blow to Trump. Really? Because you know what he did yesterday? He's still moving and grooving. This is what I gotta get a lot of folks who vote like us and think like us to understand. It did nothing. You giving a proverbial middle finger while also at the same time using that platform to further a beef between you and another artist. It didn't do nothing. It did literally nothing. Now you have to understand, I came up in a time where you had Michael Jackson, Prince perform at the halftime show and whatnot. So that's the standard that I'm used to. Look, if this was any other audience or any other stage, and if they told you that, if I told you that the demographic was going to be mostly conservative white, why are you going? You wouldn't even go with this type of performance. I'm gonna sound even more radical. This is why they should have had Lil Wayne be the halftime performer, especially if you wanted to make this a New Orleans centric. I'm gonna go on a wild limb. Say if he was the performer, everybody will be satisfied because people don't know Wayne got a lot of white conservative support. See, when I was coming up in college, you go to all them SEC. I'm gonna use the term SEC since we both follow sports. All them SEC schools, Alabama, LSU, all them white schools, all them white PWIs, shit, them parties, because I know, because I used to go to them. They be rocking Lil Wayne now. I'm serious. They still rock with Wayne. That's why Wayne probably concerned. He be like, I do, I do you Negroes. If you would have had him, I bet you would have nobody fussing today. I mean, you still gonna get few, but everybody would have loved it. White conservatives would have been satisfied for by and large. Especially Trump. But just be real, we would have been satisfied because some of us still have an affinity for Wayne. You would not be having this discussion now. This is why I don't like Jay-Z being ahead of the halftime performance. I just don't because he got some beef with Lil Wayne apparently. I don't follow beefs like that. Like that's just not productive. But you know, he got issues with Wayne. That's why he became it was a bad choice from the get-go. And I knew when they made that announcement, it was going to be this bad. I just knew from the get-go. That's just how I feel. Now, look, again, this was the performance was not good. Scissor, yeah, I know I say scissor, say scissor. That's just me. That she did nothing. Serena Williams, I don't even know why she signed up for that. I kind of I
To
lost those.
me, as a tennis dude, to me, Serena was the best part because yes,
I,
SZA,
oh,
I loved it, but she didn't add anything. I said, "Is that Serena?" Like that was
yeah,
one of the most interesting parts to me. Let me
yeah,
ask you another question
yeah.
because I think your take on this is
I'm
so
gonna keep yeah.
interesting. Let me ask you this. So, what about the people that say it was entertaining, and if you didn't like it, you just missed the symbolism because the symbolism was so strong, it was so black, like you can't help but like that.
But here's the thing about this. These are the same people who do purity tests for the Democratic Party for liberals. That's a purity test right there. I don't do purity tests. I just don't. So that's where that's falling around. All the people, even people that we know saying, oh, you probably got some bigot in your feelings or y'all just ignorant. No, 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 no. Ain't nothing ignorant. If you and I are both saying it, come on now. That let's just be honest here. So I personally
Right.
don't subscribe to any of that. I think people wanted this moment, everything going in this country. People wanted to have a moment. And they, quite frankly, they don't care if it was good or bad. They like the fact that he went and made a message, whether we got it or not. That's just how I feel. This is why, as much as I say we shouldn't, everything is political. Yeah, it clearly is, but this is probably the last institution where I didn't really want it. Now I'm fine with being everywhere else. This is one moment, especially when the game was already bad. I wanted something really entertaining. But we still got a lot of work to do, and halftime performance ain't gonna change the fact that Elon Musk is running amok. It ain't gonna stop the fact that Trump is still trying to get rid of the Department of Education. It ain't gonna stop it. Again, like I said in the beginning, what are we doing to convert that protest into action?
That's it.
That's
I
it.
totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. Look, I know our time is running short, but just in concluding all of this, as you and I say all the time, that's why the two of us are on here from different generations, um, different backgrounds to some extent, different likes and dislikes. This is a show and a place where you can come and you can comment and you can share with your own thoughts. And all we ask is that you come with some respect. And so, why Clay and I disagree, excuse me, agree on this issue, we might disagree on an issue next week, but we're
I
always
thought
going
this
to
was good. I
explain
thought this was
ourselves.
be the first thing we disagreed on, but I was wrong.
No, I'm with you on
I
this
was
one because
prepared. I was like,
as I said before, black joy and black happiness is radical. And so being entertained, I think sometimes is okay. And I do think it is important to be not educationally, politically and culturally competent. But at the end of the day, look, we know what the NFL is like. We know what the Super Bowl is like. There hasn't been some long history of political protest. And so this was new. This was different. It was what it was. Some people liked it. Some people didn't as much. And at the end of the day, as Clay said, we still have to take these protests and these radical experiences, one-off experiences, and turn them into sustainable long-term action. Because Trump and I think I mentioned this last show, but one commentator on CNN calls them Elon Musk and the Musketeers, as they are going to continue to do. Our rights are at stake every day. So anyway, I'll wrap there. I know we are running short on time, but we'll be back with an All-Star NBA edition, and I hope everyone has a good week.
you too, everybody. Take care. Until this weekend. Talk to you later.
Peace.